Hello and welcome to the Stockyard Industrial Lead. I'm Eric Miller, and today I'm going to show you a little bit about how I do yard operations for my small switching layout. Basically, for small switching layouts, you normally don't have a yard. If you look at, for example, Lance Minheim's designs, you'll notice that most of his layout plans don't really feature yards. You just need a simple lead track where you have your local job that starts out and comes out onto the layout. It's very simple and straightforward. That's kind of one of the advantages of a small switching layout, is that you don't need, a ginormous yard. You don't have to invest a lot in, turnouts and switches and kind of have that complex operation. And so this is something that I definitely thought about when I was planning my layout. When I decided to do the Stockyard Industrial Lead a few years ago, I kind of went back and forth. Do I want to just have a simple lead? Do I want to have more of a yard? Well, what really got me into deciding to go with the yard is that here in South Omaha, the short line railroad that I model interchanges with basically three Class 1 railroads in the early 90s. You have the Burlington Northern, the Union Pacific, and also you still have the Chicago Northwestern. I haven't gotten into the Chicago Northwestern yet, but I do model a Burlington Northern and a Union Pacific transfer. And so I wanted the yard to have kind of an integral part. But I also didn't want it to be too consuming. I didn't want, for example, to have a separate job where all I do for one person is yard switching. Largely because I've been to other layouts where I've done that and it gets kind of boring. I'm not completely into yard switching, but I like to do a little bit of yard switching, and so I'll show you how I integrate that, how I incorporate it into the layout. So for starters, I just want to show you this. This is the switch list that I give to my crews when we start. This is what the conductor has, and it tells you all the locations that you need to switch and the cars that need to be pulled or spotted at each one. And so the first thing you'll notice is that we have work here at South Omaha Yard. This is a similar switch list to the industrial operating thing that I did a few weeks ago. And so you notice that I have all these crossed out already. This is, as I was building my train, these are the first cars that I pulled out. I placed these back at the yard, so I'll show you how all these cars start at the yard. Now what I like to do is, as I mentioned, I like to do a little bit of switching with my crews. We'll let them do a little bit of switching, but I don't want them to spend, a huge amount of time doing yard classification work, because I think that kind of cuts into a lot of the industrial switching that I really like to do in my layout. And also, I just don't want them to have to spend a huge amount of time doing that. So, but I'll show you how I do just a little bit. Let me get a switch stick to point out. So what I do is, you'll notice that these are basically in order of the industries as they go out onto the layout. So as I've mentioned in the last video, I split these up into A1, B, and A2. A1 is Albright 1, A2 is Albright 2, B is Bellevue. So you could pull these out all at the same time, or you could take these cars, go to Albright, and switch them. The trailing point switches first. Then you could come back and do Bellevue. Then you could come back and do Albright, the facing point switches. And so it's really up to the crew. I let them decide what they want to do. And so that's the order these cars are in. And the yard, they're not ordered that way. So I don't pre-block the cars. I let the crew do that because, again, I want them to put the cars in the order that they want to. And so I really don't want to have things set up for them to do. I want to have them do just a little bit of work. So what I do instead is, in my yard, I have it set up. I have 3 tracks basically in the yard. There's technically 4, but the one track is a through track, and so I don't stage cars on it. And so I'll show you on this little diagram on the fascia. This is the through track here, track 1, and then 2, 3 also go through, and then there's track 4. So what I do in general is I put the Burlington Northern transfer cars here on track 4, cars from the SPSF on track 3, which is another added interchange that didn't really exist in the prototype, but in my prototype, the Kansas City Southern had trackage rights, so those are now the SPSF. And then track 2 is where my Union Pacific transfer cars go, and then track 1 again I keep open. And then this track in the back is for the Union Pacific Falls City subdivision. That's my transfers basically come from that track. So if you look at these cars, I basically have them grouped because I have a rough idea of where these cars are coming from that then go to the industries on my industrial spur. And so on this is track 4. These are the cars that come from the BN. These are going to the ready mix plant, which is primarily served by cars from the BN. This is going to U.S. Cold Storage, which is kind of a BN facility. And then in the back, we've got the SPSF cars. We've got some grain cars. And this car is going to the ready mix plant to get some bridge components loaded in there. And then we've got a drywall car. This is probably coming from somewhere in Texas or Oklahoma on the SPSF. And then we've got a box car that's also coming from the SPSF. And then in the back, I'll move these out of the way, we've got our UP cars. Now the Union Pacific also handles the cars that are coming from Council Bluffs. And so the local brings those down. And that's what this car is. It's a newsprint car that's going to the Bellevue Leader printing press. And then we've also got a UP reefer that's going to Miller Refrigerated. Now this car, this is something interesting that I do. This is not going to any industry on my layout. It's an extra car. So basically there's some other industries nearby that are off the layout. And so I like to feature them as well. And so this Iowa Interstate coil car is one that goes to a steel customer that is off the layout. But that would then basically be switched outside of the operating session. What I like about this is it shows that there's more outside the layout, similar to the transfers, but another way of showing it, that there's some customers nearby. My layout just doesn't have all of them. It's also kind of interesting in that it provides a little bit of a challenge for the crews, because as they're blocking their train, they have to figure out, okay, where do we put this car as we're blocking the train and classifying the cars. So just a little bit of an extra bonus to throw in there, but again, not making it too daunting. I don't want the crews to get frustrated. Keep in mind that the point of an operating session is still have a lot of fun. So I think this small amount of switching adds a little bit to the operations, so that crews aren't just only doing industrial switching. They do get a little bit of yard work. This isn't a huge massive yard that requires a lot of work and a lot of investment, not a ton of infrastructure in this yard. As you can see here, I've got my Railcar America C415 switcher there. And so, but I think it really does, it kind of, the point is to let the crew kind of do what they want when they're building their train. And as I said, just add a little bit of fun, but not make it like it's too much work. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to show you. That's how my yard operations work. So that's kind of the first thing the crew does as they get started. They might block the trains and figure out, again, the whole point is to strategize. When you see the switch list, start thinking through it and figuring out how you want to serve these industries. And then when the cars come back, sometimes what I'll do is I'll have the crew then block these by railroad, so that when the transfers come to take these cars back and switch them out, then they're basically ready to go. And I'll help the crew. I'll say, yeah, this is a BN car, this is an SPSF car, this is a UP car, etc. So if they finish up their work in time and they can do that, then that's again another little bonus that they can do at the end. So all right, so that's all I wanted to share with you today. Just a quick little video on my operations. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And as always, feel free to leave any comments. Let me know what other videos you want to see. I'm going to try to keep plugging away with some videos. I've got some projects coming up. I've got another locomotive project that I'm going to work on, and I want to show you a little bit about how I do things, because it's going to involve some repowering and some shell work. So I think that'll be interesting. So again, thanks for watching. Feel free to comment below on what else you want to see here in the Stockyard Industrial Lead, and I'll see you next time.